Don't you just love a good rags to riches story? Football is filled with so many examples of talented superstars who never had a penny to their names becoming millionaires. But what about the reverse? Despite being an extremely lucrative sport, many footballers go from a life of taking trips on yachts and cruising in expensive vehicles to being completely flat out broke. These are 10 famous football players who lost all their millions and went completely broke. Let's kick things off. Number 10. Ronaldinho Gaucho. Ronaldinho is one of those football players you'd never think would go bankrupt because he was a very successful player. Anyone would describe him as an absolute genius, and he had 2 Ballon d'Or honors and 2 FIFA World Player of the Year awards to prove it. He also played for well-known teams like Barcelona and AC Milan, so money wasn't a problem for him. However, his lifestyle was an expensive one to maintain, and it was the main reason he went bankrupt. Well, alongside some legal issues with the Brazilian government for illegally putting up construction in a protected area. To pay off his debts, Ronaldinho tried remortgaging his property, but it was unsuccessful. The government then seized his passport, while some sources revealed that he only had £5 in his bank account sometime in 2018. Absolutely shocking, right? That wasn't the end of his problems, because in 2020, he spent some time in jail in Paraguay for attempting to enter the nation using forged passports. Definitely not what anyone would expect from one of the football greats of all time. Number 9. Celestine Babayaro. Next, we have this top Nigerian player who previously played for Anderlecht and Newcastle, but is perhaps best known for his performance while playing for Chelsea. He was a member of the Nigerian team that took home the gold at the Atlanta Olympics in 1996, and at the time, Celestine's weekly pay was a whopping £35,000. Unfortunately, about 3 years after his career came to an end, he was formally declared bankrupt. He was prosecuted in court by his creditors, and he even reportedly lost his beautiful home. He apparently went bankrupt from living a very lavish lifestyle and making lots of bad money choices. But moving on from Celestine to this next player whose riches to rags story is even more unexpected. Number 8. John Arne Riise. While the majority of football players file for bankruptcy after they have retired, Riise's situation is quite different. He was declared bankrupt even though he was still a player for Liverpool and earning an estimated £50,000 per week. He was quite a successful player, scoring 16 goals for Norway until he left international service in 2013. He also won the Champions League with Liverpool among his other achievements. If you're wondering how he went broke, Riise lost all his fortune as a result of a case involving a £3 million swindle in Norway. Luckily, he was still playing during the time he lost everything, so he was able to keep playing for a while to get out of total financial ruin. He spent the last 3 seasons playing for Fulham, but was released from his contract following the club's relegation to the Football League Championship at the time. The next on our list is also one such lucky player who was able to escape total financial ruin. Number 7. Eric Jemba Jemba. Throughout his career, Eric played for many teams, but you probably got to know about him from his time with Manchester United. He also played a lot of club football, traveling extensively between France, Qatar, Denmark, Israel, Scotland, India, Indonesia, and Serbia. He was meant to replace Roy Keane, but unfortunately this didn't play out. When he wasn't playing, he was spending a lot of his fortune on some of the finer things in life. He had a lot of luxury vehicles and flaunted his wealth in what is typically the football lifestyle. Sources say at the time he had up to 10 cars as well as maintaining a total of 30 bank accounts. Financial tragedy struck in 2007 when he was still under contract to Chennai FC at the time. He filed for bankruptcy, but he's in a much better situation today. The Cameroonian player spent time at St. Mirren and in the Indian Super League to recover some money, and while some are able to pick up the pieces of their life easily, others find it a bit more difficult and perhaps even want to give up on life entirely. None more so than the next on our list. Number 6. Lee Hendrie. Lee Hendrie played for Aston Villa for a total of 11 years while enjoying a successful career. He ought to have made enough money, like most football players, to maintain his financial security. However, Her Majesty's Revenue and Customs at the High Court declared him bankrupt on January 27, 2012, causing him to attempt suicide twice during this period, showing just how bad things were at the time. His bankruptcy was caused by his expensive lifestyle and the loss of about £10 million in a real estate estate transaction. He now serves as the director of Footy Bugs and a Young Minds ambassador. We take this to be a good sign that he has thankfully gotten over the worst. Sometimes, situations that cost you all your millions aren't always because of mistakes you make, but sometimes circumstances, and that is exactly what happened to our next player. Number 5. David James. Having 169 clean sheets in the Premier League is no easy feat, but David James sure made it seem like it was. According to reports, he made about £20 million during his career, and you would expect him to have lived a pretty comfortable life after that. Of course, since he's on our list, that's not the case. For James, unlike many others, declaring bankruptcy was the result of an expensive divorce in 2005, which left him with debts he was unable to pay. The courts ordered him to sell his sports collectibles, DJ gear, and a Vohal Astra van. Those were not his finest days. Luckily, that wasn't the final chapter for him, as he served as manager of Kerala Blasters FC in the Indian Super League in 2018. He also served as a pundit on BT Sports football coverage, through which he was able to get back on his feet. And yet another player whose millions seemed to go down the drain overnight was number 4. Brad Friedel. Having played for big teams such as Liverpool, Tottenham Hotspur, and Aston Villa during his career, it was a given that Friedel undoubtedly amassed a sizable sum of money. However, he is yet another top player who ended up broke. Contrary to what you would assume, gambling or divorce were not the causes of him losing all his money. It was instead his admirable, ambitious, and noble idea to open a non-profit soccer academy in Lorain, Ohio for about $10 million. Friedel opened his football academy in 2007, but during the 2008 financial crisis, he had trouble keeping it open and securing corporate support, and it eventually shut down in 2011. Due to obligations from the academy, Friedel filed for bankruptcy protection in the United Kingdom in January of that year. The debts were added up to a grand sum of £5 million, and this caused his £260,000 house to be repossessed in part payment. While he sadly doesn't deserve this turn of events, here we are. Another player who may have arguably caused his own ruin is number 3, Paul Merson. Merson began his career as a forward, but later he found success as an attacking midfielder and playmaker. He played for many teams, Arsenal being one of them. From the money he made, he should have been set for life, but you probably know how this story goes. Gambling, drinking, and doing drugs are a few of the things that drain your bank account the fastest, but Paul Merson did all 3 of them, losing an incredible £7 million. His first marriage also fell apart as he battled alcoholism and drug addiction, and then he was arrested for drunk driving sometime in 2011 after getting into a collision with a lorry in the United Kingdom. Although addiction can be a hard thing to fight, Merson has openly admitted to almost breaking his fingers to stop himself from calling the bookies. This has earned him some praise for how he seems to have turned his life around after suffering some hard knocks. He's fortunately among those who have found their feet again. Number 2. Keith Gillespie. Just like the story of every top athlete on this list goes, Keith was initially a successful player before he fell on hard times. He played for several clubs in England and played for several teams, including Wigan Athletic, Bradford City, Leicester City, and Blackburn Rovers. However, Belfast High Court pronounced Keith bankrupt in 2010 due to a gambling addiction that cost him almost £7 million. Why does that figure sound familiar? He published his autobiography titled How Not to Be a Football Millionaire in 2013, in which he talks about his gambling addiction. He offered financial advice and wisdom that would keep people from making his mistakes. Some people on this list could definitely use his book. And finally, wrapping up our list is a footballing legend no one would ever think would ever be broke considering his influence in the sport. Number 1. Diego Maradona. Not only was Maradona named FIFA's top player of the 20th century, but he also broke the all-time transfer record, twice, just in case you have any doubts about how great he was. The controversial man is an icon in the whole world, and especially in his home country Argentina, where numerous accusations of drug use, as well as his infamous hand of God, are common knowledge. Maradona was, however, forced to declare bankruptcy in 2009 after the Italian government claimed he owed €37 million in back taxes and fines. Maradona attributed his failure to pay taxes during his tenure at Napoli to the director, who failed to inform him of the deadline for doing so. Although that seems like a weak justification, we are not passing judgment. Which of these footballers' riches to rags stories surprised you the most?